Welcome back. It's Thursday, September 14th, and today we have our week 2 NFL predictions. But today we have a very special guest to join us. He is quite literally the best co-host in the world, a guy who accepted my request early on in the career and the life of this podcast. Back when we had less than 50 subscribers, he accepted my request. He came on to be a co-host for a couple months, and he's single-handedly responsible for why this podcast is where it is today. Go ahead and say what's up and let the people know who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Bakari, the co-host. I was the co-host here, and it was a great time. I had a great time. I enjoyed every bit of it. We had a lot of fun during those early chapters of the pod. It was a lot of fun. If you're an OG, you remember the fantasy drafts we used to do for for basketball.
Yes.
And all the coverage we used to have there. But it was I had to take a little bit of time. I had some stuff I had to work on outside of the pod, but it's great being back right now. It's great to see how everything's been flowing since I've been on it and since I've been off of it, been or stepped away from it. So it's great to be back. Feels
Yeah, I
like,
mean, no doubt. If you look at the numbers, I mean, we're at a point now where it's obviously better than where we were when you were here, but we wouldn't have been here without you. So again, thank you here on the podcast. And if you guys want more of Bakari, look, just blow this video up, get it to a point where I can get a sponsorship, and neither of us will have to work our day jobs ever again. Anyway, we're gonna do a quick recap here of week 1. And as you see on your screen, last week I was 10-6, not the greatest record. But also on the screen, you see I was a 64% correct rate last year, including the playoffs. So again, not the greatest, but we're going to try and get better on that. But week 1, Thursday night football starts tonight, and it's the Eagles and it's the Vikings. Last year, these teams met on a Monday night football game. The Eagles took care of business pretty handily. I think it was like a 3-score game against the Vikings. The Eagles, they looked pretty rough in that fourth quarter last week. The Vikings, well, they lost to Baker Mayfield. Give me your early predictions on this game. I know you're a pretty big fan of one of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, for those of you who are, newer to the channel, I am a big Jalen Hurts fan. If you go back and watch the Super Bowl coverage that we did, I could back it up then, and I'm going to back it up now. I don't think that the Eagles will. I think they'll break out of the rust a little bit quicker than I think the Vikings will. More so, I believe in Jalen Hurts' more ability to be more consistent and get right back on track more than I do Kirk Cousins to at least start off this season. Not taking anything away from Kirk. Kirk is a good QB when he wants to be. He does have those monstrous games, but he also leaves you those games where he is the single reason that you lost the game. 3 turnovers last week versus Tampa and the Baker Mayfield led Buccaneers. It just didn't get it done. Justin Jefferson had a great game. And if you look at those numbers, you're like, oh man, they definitely won this game, and they did not. Now, the Eagles, they didn't play good in their own right. I think the defense was solid versus the Patriots, but I mean, we all know that the Patriots, their lack of offensive weapons is something. At least, difference makers and people that can create mismatches out there on the outside for Mac Jones. But I do believe in the Eagles' offense and defense. I believe it'll get back on track here versus the Vikings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have some numbers here. Kirk Cousins is 4-5 in primetime in his career. We know that is an ongoing, conversation with people that he can't win the big game in primetime, but he has a very tough matchup here on the road in Philly to take on a team that, like you said, is just trying to knock off some Super Bowl rust. I still think Philly's the most complete team in football, and I'm going to go with Philly as well here at home. But I do want to throw this out there. In our draft coverage video, when we were doing our mock drafts here for the NFL draft, Bakari, you came out and you said that Brian Branch was one of your favorite players. For me, one of my favorite players was Jordan Addison. Both of those guys had really, really key plays in their games week 1. I mean, Addison had like a touchdown or two, had like a really good day, and then Brian Branch had that pick 6 on Pat Majesus. So I just want to throw that out there. I mean, hey, I think we're both more so we enjoy the basketball side of things more, but hey, we know our things on the football side of things as well. But speaking about the Detroit Lions, to open up the Sunday night games, we have the Seattle Seahawks, who looked very poor in that game against the Cooper Cup-less Los Angeles Rams. They traveled to Detroit to take on a very promising Detroit Lions team that just took down the reigning defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Detroit is home here. Who is your favorite in this game? Do you think Seattle can bounce back, or does Detroit keep rolling?
I think Detroit keeps rolling. I think that not only are they feeding off of energy from this upset win versus the Chiefs last week, but they're also coming off of a very promising end to last season, a season where they feel like they could have had it more so in their hands if they started off the season better last year. They wouldn't have had to rely on other circumstances surrounding their playoff entrance. But I think that I have my favorite is the Lions this week. I like the way their defense played against Pat Mahomes. I know Travis Kelce wasn't there or was injured, and Kadarius Toney had those key drops. But I still like the way they played. I don't know about you, but I feel like Aiden Hutchinson, he played a lot better than I think I expected. Obviously Brian Branch, he did have that pick six off the Kadarius Toney drop, or whatever you want to call it, slip through the hands, just inability to catch the ball. But I also think that Jared Goff didn't take a lot of risk. They ran the ball, and they were able to do that really good last week. Obviously we saw David Montgomery run the ball really well. I think a key thing for the Lions this week that I believe that will really help them win this game is if they can get Jamar Gibbs more involved. I feel like they kind of tried to use him a little bit as more so an inside rusher. He did have I remember the one late outside run he had. I feel like if they could get him more involved in those, or like short catch and run situations, that they'll be successful this week.
Yeah, I think David Montgomery, I mean, I'll say like his week last week was saved by that late touchdown. But aside from that, I mean, he was solid for, he was doing what David Montgomery should be doing on the field.
Right. Yeah.
But I agree with you here. I think Jahmyr Gibbs needs to be more involved with all the splash plays he had. And Detroit, I mean, offensively and defensively, they've just looked better. And they even, there was some highlights there that Jared Goff missed on some deep throws there to Amon-Ra, or he just didn't make that throw that could have been a big play. So I think this offense could have looked even better last week. And the defense, I mean, anytime you can shut down a Chiefs offense, I mean, you're going to look pretty good. I agree with you here. I'm going to go with the Lions at home as Seattle. I mean, if they're going to go down 0-2, that's, there's going to be a lot of big questions about this team, but they looked very bad last week. So I have no confidence in them right now.
What do you think?
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but what do you think about, like, do you have any concern for like DK? Do you think that he should be taking steps forward? Do you think his play should be elevating year in and year out? Or do you think he's just been more so, or he's content with being like the 1B or, even 2A on his team?
Over the last 3 or 4 years, it's been those two guys in that room. And Tyler Lockett's numbers have been consistent. He's been like a top 10, 15 level receiver. And DK's numbers have only gone down each and every year. Now, I know DK has more of the focus. He is a 6'4", and he's built like an action figure, but I mean, he does face some top corners in the league. I guess your original question, you'll have to restate it for me, but definitely, I think I would like to see DK step up. But what was your original question yet again?
I guess what I was trying to ask is, do you think he rises when the moment is needed, or do you think he makes enough plays to, I guess, consider himself that number one receiver, which you answer with the Tyler Lockett numbers compared to DK's, but you also did, given the fact that he is getting more attention from the better corners on the other sides too. But
yeah, no, I think he does need to step up. I mean, like I said, his numbers have regressed year after year since really Russell Wilson's last year and on. His numbers have regressed. And, I guess in the last 2 years of Russ, you guys get the picture. His numbers have regressed the last couple of years, and it's just for a player that has the potential that DK does, you would like to see him be in the conversations of who is the best receiver in the league. DK, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek, Justin Jefferson, but it's not. He's more so the question is more so, is he the best receiver on his team more so than in the league? And we know the potential is he should be at the top caliber, or at least that's my assumption. I think he has the potential to be in the top echelon of the league, and he's just not over the last couple of years. But that is it. You're taking Detroit?
Yes, I am. Detroit for the win.
Detroit for the win. Crazy world we live in. AFC South matchup here. We have Anthony Cam Newton going to Houston to take on CJ Stroud, two of the top drafted quarterbacks in this recent draft class. And both of these quarterbacks, these are probably the quarterbacks that look the best out of that rookie class in week one. No shade to Bryce Young, but these are two quarterbacks that to me showed a lot of promise. I mean, the Colts, without Jonathan Taylor, Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson, they got it going, and they put up a fight there against Jacksonville, who, to me, Jacksonville is a top 5 team in the league. But then for Houston, they were, in a tough game throughout, but they just couldn't score enough to get over the hump against Baltimore. Both of these teams played really high caliber teams. They just couldn't get the job done. And I think that's more so just because it's a year of development for both of these teams. But quick assessment on both these teams, and who do you take in week 2?
I take Indianapolis here. Like you said, they played a good game last week versus the Jags, and more importantly, I think Anthony Richardson, at least out of the week 1 performances, out of the rookie QBs, Anthony Richardson, in my mind, played the best. CJ Stroud didn't have that bad of a game. I got it out of these two, but the Texans, they were in that tough game versus the Ravens, but it was only a matter of time before you kind of just figured the Texans wouldn't be able to score with the Ravens. You just figured Baltimore would get a lead, and then it just kind of be, one of those games where it's like, can the Texans even get back into the end zone or into the end zone at all? The Colts they have the more ability to get into the end zone, and I think that's where the Texans are going to struggle for a little bit. Not to take away from CJ Stroud's potential or skill level. I just think that the Colts are built better right now than the Texans are. Obviously the Colts are missing Jonathan Taylor, but I think people kind of forget that sometimes this Colts team, it's the only thing they lack is the quarterback. Or in recent years,
Absolutely.
with older aging veterans, or Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Phillip Rivers, and it was just like the QB play that really dragged them down. I think when you have a young quarterback who, the more wins he gets under his belt, the better he plays. He'll just get more and more confident, and that'll elevate the entire team. I mean, he's a captain for a reason as a rookie, so obviously the team believes in him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to start this narrative now, as there was once upon a time a quarterback of similar stature. I mentioned this on Tuesday, I believe, that went to Florida. Sure, his success wasn't at Florida, but he went to Florida and he came into the league and was, again, had a very similar play style, very similar stature, and he won an MVP, and he may be the best player for an entire franchise's history. That guy, of course, is Cam Newton. I think Anthony Richardson plays a lot like Cam Newton. Of course, he's also out of Florida. It plays exactly the same, and he is, again, around the same height and weight and all that good stuff. Do you think Anthony Richardson has the potential to be Cam Newton? That's going to be my question to you, as we didn't talk about this much in the offseason, but now that, kind of the stars are aligning, do you think Anthony Richardson has the potential to be Cam Newton? Because prime Cam was different.
Yeah, I think he does. I think that when you draft a player like him, obviously it's not like he had the greatest season ever at Florida. There was obviously some flaws that he had to work on, but the skill was there sometimes. You could see the talent outshine the flaws a lot of the times, and the potential. I guess that's what you draft him based off of. And, with a player like him, I think he might actually, have a certain point where if he keeps developing the way that the Colts expect him to develop, along with the body stature, the same kind of play style as Cam, I think that he might even be able to end up having maybe a more so talented arm than Cam. Obviously Cam, Cam
didn't really have much touch with the ball. He was just
right.
I'm going to throw the ball 100 miles an hour and you better catch it.
Exactly. And I think that Anthony Richardson can maybe be better than Cam in that regard, maybe at a certain point in his career where we kind of see him at the best he's going to get. But I definitely think the comparisons are definitely, they make a lot of sense. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. I think, yet again, like you were saying, I'm going to take the Colts in this one, not to piggyback off of you here. But the Colts, to me, they just, like you said, they're a quarterback away. And I think they come into this game they have much more veteranship, and they should win on the road, as CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans still try and figure things out. But moving over to the Chicago and Tampa Bay matchup, we have Justin Fields and the Chicago offense that looked pretty poor last week against the Green Bay Packers. And Justin Fields still can't figure out how to throw the ball down the field effectively. While on the other hand, you have a resurged Tampa Bay offense that added Baker Mayfield. And for the entire offseason, it was who's going to win the quarterback job. I don't think it's in question anymore, but that was the question. And now here we are with Baker Mayfield as 1-0 And this might be the best Baker we've ever seen. Quick thoughts on this matchup as Tampa's home and they are 1-0.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tampa here. Listen,
Really?
I like Justin Fields as a person. He I don't know. The Bears leave a lot to be desired on the field, on offense at least. Whether it's Chase Claypool acting like he just doesn't want to be on the field at all, or it's Justin Fields not being able to look 5 yards down the field, to throw anything that's not in front of the line of scrimmage, or whether it's just people's inability to make plays if you're not going to get the ball to DJ Moore. The Bears, I feel like, leave a lot desired, and I can't believe I'm going to, it's coming down to who do I trust more, a Baker-led offense with Mike Evans and Chris Goodwin. Do I trust them more, or do I trust, Justin Fields in that offense? I trust the Tampa Bay Buccaneers more here in this situation. And look, their defense was able to force 3 turnovers last week versus Minnesota. And, I think by everybody, if you ask somebody randomly off the street, they're going to say that Minnesota offense is miles better than that Chicago-led offense. And if you can get 3 turnovers off of Kirk, obviously Justin Jefferson still did have that good game, but listen, you're not facing anybody who's Justin Jefferson on that other side of the ball this week. I think that this is a win for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, honestly, I was thinking about going with Tampa just to mix things up so we didn't have the same prediction. But you know what? I will go with the contrary here. I will go with Chicago. I think that, Justin Fields and DJ Moore, this is an offense that has a lot to prove this week, especially how bad they looked last week. I think they have a lot to prove this week. And, again, in my heart, I truly believe Tampa will win with the defensive line they have, and they are more of a veteran team. However, Chicago does have some talent on both sides of the ball, and I think that Justin Fields and Roschon Johnson, DJ Moore, this offense can make enough plays to get the job done on the road in Tampa Bay, and both these teams are 1-1 after week 2. But moving over here to the Kansas City and Jacksonville matchup, we have the Chiefs, who lost Thursday Night Football, but they get their second and third best players back for this big matchup. Chris Jones signed a 1-year contract, which I'm not sure what him and his agent were doing. Regardless, Travis Kelce is also back here, as those are 2 top 25 players in the world, and they're joining, of course, Pat Mahomes. They're on the road, they're hungry, and they have to end this Super Bowl hangover. And they get a big matchup here against Jacksonville. These are 2 top 6 teams, in my opinion, in the league. And Jacksonville, they looked amazing last week with Calvin Ridley's return to football. I bet you didn't have Calvin Ridley going for that crazy of a game. But both these teams, big game. I think it might be the game of the week. But who would you have in this matchup as Kansas City gets their players back, but they're on the road?
Yeah, this is obvious. This is a tough one because, like you said, Jacksonville did play. I thought Trevor Lawrence, his arm talent was on full display last week. He made some incredible throws. Calvin Ridley came back with a vengeance, and I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars, will continue this season to prove why they belong in one of the upper echelon of teams this year. But they are going against the Chiefs, and it is hard to bet on the Chiefs in any games, really. Obviously, I learned that the hard way come the Super Bowl. That's the biggest game of the year. But I think when you get Chris Jones back, and if Travis Kelce is going to play, I think that you have more playmaking than you had this past week versus the Lions for the Chiefs. You're not going to have to rely on Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore on downs that you really need to get the ball just even 7-8 yards. You can go to Travis Kelce. You have obviously that added pass rush defense with Chris Jones this week. It'll be a true test for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, they met in the playoffs last year, but I believe that I believe Kansas City gets right back on track this week. I don't expect Kadarius Toney to have that bad of a week this week. Obviously, if Travis Kelce is playing, he's not going to get the same must convert down looks. But I believe Kansas City gets right back on track this week in a hard-fought win.
Yeah, you mentioned there the big point here is that this is a rematch of the divisional round last year in the playoffs. And I think Jacksonville comes into this game, they're hungry. They want to prove that, hey, we are what some of the media thinks we are. And we are a Super Bowl contender. We are to be taken seriously. And I think they come into this game with a chip on their shoulder. And again, I love Jacksonville this year. However, I don't think they're ready for Kansas City. And as crazy as that sounds, again, I think Jacksonville's a great team. They win their division. They might even grab the 1 seed in the AFC. But Kansas City is a different animal. It's a different beast. And I think they're going to take care of business on the road here because, for one, Kansas City, after a Super Bowl, they can't afford to start 0-2. As sure, we've seen many teams bounce back from that. And if you have Mahomes, I'm sure you're okay with starting 0-5, but you just don't want to be in that predicament. And I mean, this is a Chiefs team that was in a one-score game without their second and third best players last week. So you bring those guys back on the road here. And I can't believe I'm taking all these road teams, but it's hard to bet against the best man in football, and that is Patrick Mahomes. Even though Jacksonville's talented, I think I'm going to go with Kansas City here on the road too. But moving over here to the next matchup, and this might be a sleeper game of the week, in my opinion. It's going to be low scoring. It's not going to be 30-30, but it's going to be Green Bay on the road going into Atlanta. And this game is a game highlighted by Jordan Love versus Desmond Ridder. Jordan Love on one hand, I mean, I'm a big fan of him. I've been, as Bakari can attest to that. I've been since he was drafted. Now it's a cold take at this point, but I said he had the potential to be the second best quarterback in that draft class. Of course, I didn't think Justin Herbert was going to be as good as he is. So that statement looks, stupid now, but I still think he has the potential to be one of the best in that draft class. And that's a draft class with Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and many others. Lamar Jackson's in that class as well. I think he has the potential, after sitting behind Rodgers for years, to be in that conversation. I'm not saying this year, not next year, but when we look at their careers, I think he has the potential to be in that conversation. And he showed out last week. He won a very big game in his home opener. It looked very comfortable, surprisingly, for a first start. And then Atlanta took care of business against Carolina last week, as Bryce quite literally is young and he wasn't ready for prime time, had a couple bad plays, and Jesse Bates had a big game there with a couple picks against the rookie. So I think this has the potential to be a very good game here, a clash of styles. The Packers are going to air it out. The Falcons are going to run with Bijan. But who do you have in this matchup here? As I think we're definitely going to go two different ways.
Yeah. This is like the last one. This is kind of tough, only because now we're dealing with not upper echelon teams. We're dealing with these what a lot of people would assume are bottom tier teams. But
mid-tier teams. But let's be fair, mid-tier.
Yeah, I'll give them mid-tier. These teams, they both don't get me wrong, they don't lack talent. I think I personally am going to take Atlanta this week. I think if they can, I like their weapons. I like Kyle Pitts, Bijan. Obviously, we all saw the highlight play last week. I like Drake London. I feel like Desmond Ridder has a lot more at his disposal than Jordan Love. But I mean, on the other hand, Aaron Jones did have a huge game last week as well. But I'm going to take Atlanta in this matchup. I think that similar to last week, Jesse Bates is going to have another good game. You have a veteran safety back there going against another young QB who's, what is this? Isn't this like his third or fourth start?
Third or fourth year.
Yeah, third or fourth year. But, obviously the lack of playing time, maybe it'll show itself versus a veteran on the defense. And like I said, I like Atlanta's weapons a little bit more. I think that you can rely on those guys more. No matter, I could be playing quarterback out there and I want, Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson and Drake London on my team. So I'm going to take Atlanta this week.
But yes, so you went with Atlanta in that game. Just to switch things up here, I do want to roll with Jordan Love on the road to show my fandom, of course, because there's no other way to do that than to mindlessly pick with your heart. And that is with Jordan Love here. So I'm going to go Jordan Love on the road here. I think, Jair Alexander can guard Kyle Pitts. He can guard Drake London. As long as this team can shut down the run, which is very hard to do. This is the best run offense in the league last year. The Packers should have a pretty good shot to pull this one out. It's definitely not in their favor, but give me Green Bay to go against the grain there. Las Vegas is going to Buffalo, a very weird Buffalo team. This is not the records I predicted for both teams, but the Raiders are 1-0, beating the Sean Payton-led Denver Broncos. They're going to Buffalo to get put through a table, maybe, against an 0-1 Bills team that lost to a Zach Wilson led New York Jets team. Quick thoughts on this matchup, and what do you have coming out on top?
I'm going to take Buffalo here. I don't, I don't expect Josh Allen to repeat his mistakes from last week. I think we're 2 weeks away from that happening. No, I'm kidding, of course. But I am going to take Buffalo here. Obviously, their struggles last week. Josh Allen did struggle, but the Jets, they do have a really, really good defense as well. So you have to give them credit in that regard. For the life of me, I can't imagine the Raiders, limiting the Bills this week to 13 points all game. I think it'll probably be 14-zip or at least, 14-3 or something like that, like midway through the second quarter in this one. Stephon Diggs, he had a really good game as well, creating a lot of separation versus Sauce Gardner last week. I just think that continues this week as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If Buffalo should have their way, they're home. They need to win. They need to make a statement on top of that with how Josh Allen played and with how they closed that game. So I think Buffalo pretty easily is going to put the Raiders through a table, because I had the Raiders only at like 3 or 4 wins this year. So they need to slow down. AFC North matchup next, as we have Cincinnati, who is my Super Bowl favorite, going to Baltimore to take on Lamar and the Ravens. And of course, the Bengals, they lost last week to the Browns in pretty embarrassing fashion. I know the media had their way with Joe Burrow as he signs a $275 million contract and throws for 80 yards, has his worst career game. That's funny how that stuff always works out that way. But Baltimore, on the other hand, they won and they did their job there against Houston. But J.K. Dobbins, they lost him for the season. But good news, they should have Mark Andrews back for this one. But I'll start this one off. I'm going to take Cincinnati on the road. Again, like I mentioned, they were my number one team coming into the season. I think they win the Super Bowl this year. They did fall to 5 in my power rankings on Tuesday. But I think they come into this game with a lot more to prove, and they need to make a statement win, especially in the AFC North division. I'm going to take Cincinnati here against Baltimore on the road to get back on the right track.
Yeah, I am going to actually take the opposite. Like you said, the Bengals need a convincing win this week, and I think the Ravens do too. I mean, obviously, not a lot of people are expecting a lot of things from the Texans, and the Ravens still look like they were knocking off some dust. Obviously, they're running a new offensive system, new offensive scheme. Lamar's trying to get his legs back under him. Obviously, we all know how last year played out for him. Same thing with Odell; he missed the entire year. Obviously we know that the Bengals and Joe Burrow struggle at the beginning of the year. Obviously this year he didn't play in the preseason dealing with that calf injury. And we saw some side effects from that last week as he had to have, full-time maintenance on it over on the sideline during the conditions last week. I think that as much as the Bengals need a convincing win, I think the Ravens do as well. I think they're going to, prove to everybody what this offense can really do and what their defense can really do. And I believe that they'll get it done this upcoming week, maybe in a closer game. Maybe not all the rust will be knocked off, but I think that they will win this upcoming week.
Yeah, I mean, maybe an 80-yard game-winning kick from Justin Tucker. Those are routine for him. But if Mark Andrews isn't back, I will say I was very impressed with Zay Flowers. And yes, he had a very good week last week. But I guess this is your biggest test, Baltimore. Show us that new passing offense. Moving over to the Chargers and the Tennessee Titans. Both teams are 0-1. The Chargers lost maybe the game of the year already in week 1. And then the Titans lost a close one there to the Saints. Both teams lost in, I guess, heartbreaking fashion. But the Chargers 0-1. No doubt in my mind, I'm going to take them here. I'm not the big Tennessee fan. I said that before the year. I think this is a team that no one is saying, but they could very well end up with a Caleb Williams or Drake May on their team going into next year. And when your best quarterback on your team, the ball, the quarterback that takes care of the ball, quote unquote, the veteran on that team throws 3 interceptions, it can only get worse when you put a Malik Willis or a Will Levis back there. This team's not in the greatest position, and if Derrick Henry doesn't rush for 250 yards, give me the Los Angeles Clippers. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers here with Justin Herbert.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I was wondering what the smell was on Sunday, and then I looked and saw that Ryan Tannehill had 3 picks, and I was like, oh, that's what it was. Versus Saints, no less, not taking anything away from the Saints, obviously. But obviously, I think that these two teams are just on different stratospheres as far as talent level all around goes. Justin Herbert He's going to get it done this week. Obviously, like you said, they lost that close game in what is already a contender for game of the year in the NFL. And if Tyreek and Tua don't look like I'm trying to think like
Tom Brady and
Randy Moss, right? Then the Chargers have that win. But I don't know if there's a single person that can guard Tyreek 1-on-1 in coverage. Luckily, they don't have to deal with that this week. I think they get it done.
Absolutely, the Chargers should show a lot more promise offensively. Moving over to the Giants, going to the 0-1 Arizona Cardinals last week. I'm going to say this. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. The Giants, you lost 40-0. Can't get much worse than that. You need a big win here. I'm going to have them on the road winning at Arizona. As Arizona, let's be real. Last week they tried to make it seem like they wanted to win that game. Good acting, right? They deserve to be in Hollywood. They're going after Caleb Williams. Give me the Giants on the road.
Yes, I agree with you. Obviously, the way the Giants played, last week and what the Cardinals' season outcome expectations are, this is a nasty looking game. Obviously, I don't think that the Giants are going to have a repeat of what happened last week versus the Cardinals. I think we see a significantly better New York team out there on Sunday. And like you, I am going to take Danny Dimes and the Giants this week.
Yeah, hopefully Daniel Dimes doesn't, hopefully he's on his feet more so than on the ground, which is what it felt like last week against the Dallas Cowboys. If not, just give the ball to Saquon. I mean, no one on the Cardinals is getting paid to tackle anyway. As again, their main goal is getting Caleb Williams in that red and whatever they call it, the red and gold there. Moving over to an NFC West matchup, we have two teams I did not expect to have the same record after week one. The San Francisco 49ers at 1-0, going to Los Angeles to take on the Rams at 1-0. On one hand, the Niners look like the best team in football, and on Tuesday I had them as such, as the number one team in football. And they go to the Rams, who, without Cooper Kupp, without Jalen Ramsey, they looked like a really good football team, surprisingly. They went and they took care of Seattle in Seattle. And they ended up winning that game. I mean, Puka Nacua, a guy who I've never heard of, had like 10 receptions for 120 yards. And Tutu Atwell, the Madden legend, he had himself a day as well. So Matt Stafford looked really good, and I'll say that, give him his props. And Sean McVay is my favorite coach in the NFL. But give me the better team and just overall offensively, defensively, give me San Fran.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was going to, just as you did, I was going to give props to Sean McVay for having this Rams team ready to play week one versus the Seahawks. And like you said, I don't think a lot of people expected them to come out on the winning side of that final score.
In convincing fashion, too.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. In convincing fashion. But San Francisco did obliterate, the Steelers last week. We all saw the graphic. I think the total yards is like 199-1 at a certain point in that game. Brandon Ayuk, he had a really great game. Brock Purdy looked stable and steady. He's only in year two for our first year as a full starter. We expect to see big things from him or see how he handles his first full year. But I do expect San Francisco to get carried by their talent in this game.
Hide your mamas. Zach Wilson is the quarterback now for the Jets yet again, and they are on the road in this one, going to Dallas to take on a historical defense, it looks like, there in Dallas. The Jets, I mean, of course, Aaron Rodgers, they came into this year with Super Bowl aspirations. I'm sure they want to tell themselves they still have those, but Zach Wilson is, he has a lot of development to do, and this is a Cowboys team that, I've said it here a bunch, this is a Cowboys team that, just like the Bills, both of those teams they're very similar. They're going to be really good regular season teams for years and years. They're going to win 12, 13 games, but then in the playoffs, they are only going to win one game at max, and then find a way to mess it up. They won't be able to get it done at the biggest stage. But good news for the Cowboys in this matchup. It's the regular season, and I'm going to take Dallas here at home.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Dallas as well. I believe that when we did our season predictions, I believe I even had Dallas going to the Super Bowl or Super Bowl contenders this year.
You did.
And that defense looks like it's really great. I mean, obviously this is a defense that's been playing together for years. They're used to each other. And look, I guess it's not hard to look that good versus Daniel Jones, but the pressure they were getting, Micah Parsons, that entire defensive line. The pressure they were able to get on Sunday night was just it was insanely impressive. Obviously, we all saw they start the game off by getting a special team touchdown. I believe that this defense will they're going to haunt Zach Wilson this next upcoming week. Obviously, I don't know. Can you remember 5 passes that Zach Wilson completed on Monday night? I don't think you can.
I was too worried about where my mom was.
yeah, well, exactly. So I believe that they're going to take Zach Wilson's lunch money and they're not going to give it back ever. I expect big things from the Cowboys defense yet again this week.
I mean, 7 sacks, 2 picks. They had one of their largest blowout wins at home in franchise history, and then they held the Giants to their biggest loss at home ever in the Giants franchise history. So historical week 1 there for the Cowboys, but can they continue to do it? I think at least for this week, 2-0 Cowboys. Washington and Sam Howell go to Denver to take on the Denver Broncos, of course. Denver, they're 0-1 here, and I don't believe Sean Payton can really afford an 0-2 start in this matchup, especially with how bad he talked about Nathaniel Hackett in his stint last year with Denver. But Washington, they looked very promising last year. There was a lot of hype around Sam Howell this offseason, and he showed it in week 1. He had a pretty good week 1. And even though it wasn't the most explosive, it was mostly a week led by Brian Robinson. But it was still an impressive showing there from Sam Howell, and he might be their guy moving forward. They're on the road in this one in Denver, in Mile High. What's your prediction for this one?
I'm going to take Denver here. I believe, like you said, Sean Payton he's not going to let this team go to 0-2. And I think Russ, he has something to prove, obviously. We know how bad of a year he had last year. But I believe that the Broncos win this game. I don't know who I trusted more, I guess Sam Howell or Russell Wilson, which is crazy. But I'm going to trust the duo of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson this upcoming week.
Yeah, I mean, in Mile High, it's very hard for young quarterbacks to win, regardless of how good the Denver defense is. And I want to take Denver really bad in this game because I want to trust the Hall of Fame quarterback over a first-year starter. I'm going to have to do that. Give me Denver because Patrick Surtain is going to have Terry McLaurin in maximum security prison and whoever else he guards. So I'm going to take Denver at home. I hope Javonte Williams has a day. I hope he scores 2 or 3 touchdowns. And again, it's for the simple fact that Sean Payton can't afford an 0-2 start. It's time to start winning some ball games. But moving over to Sunday Night Football, we have the Miami Dolphins, who looked like the best team in football last week, going to Foxborough to take on a very questionable Patriots ball club. As Miami, of course, last week we had Tua and we had Tyreek. Tyreek went for 200 plus yards. He had like 11 receptions, 2 touchdowns. He was the TAP player of the week. Not to take your segment there, Bakari. But then Tua had like 500 yards here last week in week 1. So this team looked good offensively. They have a new defensive coordinator there in Vic Fangio. They looked good on both sides of the ball, and that is without Jalen Ramsey, who they traded for this offseason. And then for New England, Philly tried to give them that game. As New England had chance after chance in that fourth quarter, there was 2 failed fourth down completions from Philly that gave New England the ball with under 8 minutes to go, and New England failed to score both times. So they deserved to lose that game last week in honor of Tom Brady, which was also icing on the cake. But give me Miami on the road here. I think they're just too talented, and Tyreek Hill, every time he plays the Patriots, goes off for at least like 100 yards. So
yeah, we have a battle of former Alabama quarterbacks here, and I'm going to take the Simonian Prince. I mean, Tua Taga, but however you say it, I'm playing. I'm going to take the Dolphins this week. Like you said, the Tua and Tyreek Hill both look like MVP candidates early in week 1 versus a really good Chargers team. I expect the exact same attack this week versus the Patriots. Maybe Bill Belichick will try and scheme up whatever ways to slow down Tyreek, but I think that this Patriots team trying to slow down Tyreek and Tua is Tua having 345 yards instead of 445 yards and Tyreek having 175 yards instead of 215. So I'm going to take the Dolphins here.
Moving over to Monday Night Football, unless you have some further comments, This is the first Monday Night Football game of the week. We have the Saints and the Carolina Panthers, an NFC South matchup here. The Saints, they squeaked by with a win last week against the Titans in Derek Carr's debut for the team. And then for Bryce Young's debut, again, I use the pun, Bryce is young, as he showed that last week. He's just not quite ready yet for the pros, but he still showed flashes, and that's what you want to see out of your rookie quarterback. He's home here, and I don't think that really helps him much. I'm going to take the veteran Saints team, a team that needs it more now than in the future, as their Super Bowl window is only closing, if it's open at all. Give me the Saints here on the road to take care of business and take advantage, I guess, of the young quarterback.
Yes, I agree with you. The Saints is my pick. They were able to get those 3 turnovers off of Ryan Tannehill last week. I expect at least one this week upcoming for Bryce Young. Like you said, he's still young. He still has improvements to make. Number 1 pick in the draft. But this Carolina team expects him to take his lumps. And I doubt that they're really searching for anything right now other than improvement from their young team, for their young quarterback. Excuse me, I could not speak English momentarily.
I'm telling you, I've been doing these. Obviously, you see, I'm on episode 96. It doesn't matter when you were on the podcast or without. I have those moments. I just can't talk. And of course, we don't cut any of this. So it's just kind of one take, go, and you sound how you sound. But to my understanding, we're both taking the Saints here, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Both taking the Saints. And then the last game of the week, we have the best team in football, the Cleveland Browns, going to Pittsburgh to take on the Kenny Pickett-led Pittsburgh Steelers team. The Browns last week really looked like a top 10 team in football. Mainly it was the defense, as we won 24-3 against my Super Bowl favorite in the Bengals, and that was with Deshaun Watson missing half of his passes, and a lot of them looked wide open, or a lot of them were underthrows from Deshaun Watson, so still some rust there from Watson, which we expect to eventually shake off. But we looked dominant despite the poor offensive output from Deshaun Watson, at least in the passing department. And then the Steelers, on the other hand, I had them winning last week against the Niners. I had him as like a upset of the week, and that pick just made me upset. The Pittsburgh Steelers, like you mentioned earlier, there was a point in the game where San Fran had 199 yards and Pittsburgh had 1. That's not a recipe to win the ball game. TJ Watt had an amazing day, but we expected that. Regardless of TJ Watt, I don't know if anybody else showed up to play football in that game against San Fran. Quick thoughts about this game, and who are you taking?
I expect this Browns defense under Jim Schwartz to have another elite game versus Kenny Pickett and the Steelers this week. Obviously, Deontay Johnson is out. Cam Hayward is out. I think Nick Chubb is going to have a good game as well. I don't know about you, but I like Deshaun's mobility that he displayed this past week. Even if he wasn't able to complete the pass, just the way he was able to extend plays or just, run for the first down himself. I think, I'd like to think that majority of his throws that were underthrown or just not on target were a factor of the wind and the rain that was, going on pretty heavy downtown in Cleveland, as obviously Joe Burrow struggled as well, even resorting to a glove. I think that, he cleans up some of those completions this week. We put together a very good offensive game as well as have another elite defensive game. Our corners looked insane last week as well. Everything on defense looked crazy, but our corners, all healthy, all on the field at the same time. Martin Emerson, Greg Newsome, and Denzel Ward. I really like the way those 3 played in man coverage last week versus Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. So
yeah, Tyler Boyd maybe had the best game out of those 3, and when that happens, 90% of the time it's not going to be a good ending. But the Browns, just sometimes you just have another team's number, and if this was any other year where we barely beat the Bengals, but we beat them, I would probably take Pittsburgh here at home, as TJ Watt has tortured the Browns for years. But we look different in week 1. And again, it's just week 1. I don't want to overreact to it. As Browns fans, we have a very bad habit of that. And then we get let down, and then we, want to burn down the city. But I'm going to take Cleveland here on the road, as I'm a Browns fan. I'm going to take them until they prove me wrong. But I really believe that we win this game with how bad Pittsburgh looked. Of course, we don't expect Mike Tomlin to have a team play like that for 2 weeks in a row, but the Browns just looked different on defense last week, and I think that carries over into Monday night, and I think we get our first primetime win of the season. Any last thoughts about this NFL week before we get out of here?
No, I mean, the great thing about every NFL season at the beginning is that, a lot of teams show a lot of promise, and we get to see the young talent, like usual, come out and see what they have. It is particularly exciting for us Cleveland fans this year. We're either going to get let down come week 5 and everything else after, or, maybe we can actually play good until week 9 this year. It's really exciting. Whether you're a fan of a team that, I wouldn't want to be a fan of a team like the Titans. I feel, sorry, Titans fans, but,
Right.
Most teams out here, it's exciting to be a fan and see what they can bring to the table every Sunday as, you really don't understand how much you miss football until it is back on and you are, drawn to your seat like the Monday Night Football game this past week versus Jets and Bills. So it's been exciting so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, week 2, this is the hardest part of the year to predict games, and we're doing it. So I mean, we might be perfect this week, we might be completely wrong. But before we get out of here, there's no way we could have left this podcast, because I don't know how often we're going to get you here this season. There's no way I could leave this podcast without getting some basketball out of you. So last thing here to finish up the show, the 2024 Olympics. Of course, the U.S. FIBA team lost, and they didn't even medal. So they were the 4th place team, and that was the team led by Jaren Jackson, Anthony Edwards, and others. But now LeBron got a tweet. He was tweeted, and someone was like, "Hey, does LeBron want to get a last dance run here in the Olympics?" And LeBron, he put the eye emojis. He's like, maybe I'm interested. But then he confirmed it. LeBron is going to be playing in 2024 Olympics, and he's not coming by himself. He's basically forming the Avengers with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Stephen Curry, and others. Devin Booker said he's in to play in the Olympics. Are you excited for this? I think it's funny to me that the rest of the world had the world champion chatter there. I think it's just funny that they had to poke the bear, and now LeBron is bringing quite literally all the stars with him in 2024.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think this will be it'll be very fun to see all these stars out there. For a lot of these, most of these guys are older. It'll be their last ride for Team USA.
Yeah,
but it'll be fun to see these guys play, on the same court. I don't know about you. I do not want Draymond and Chris Paul and those guys there. I think that you might need to go a little bit younger. And me personally, when I saw I saw this, I can't remember who was all on it, but it was basically like, not the set in stone roster, but it was pretty set in stone because the guys they had, majority of the guys they had in there had already confirmed, their intention to play. And the only big man on the team was Anthony Davis. I did see, however, one that it took away like Draymond and some like 3 other players and replaced them for like Damian Lillard, Evan Mobley, and somebody else. I think if we can get another, big out there, because the international play is different than how, we play in the NBA. I like to see a little bit more size, but I mean, anytime you have LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Devin Booker, Anthony Davis, you're not going to lose a lot of times, if any. So I am really excited to see what this final roster looks like next year in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, it's what's cool to me is like these international players. They're so, I guess, I don't want to say patriotic. That sounds like the wrong word to use, but they love playing for their country. Like Giannis was going to play in the FIBA Cup if he didn't get injured. We know when it comes to Olympic time, Jokic is going to be playing for Serbia. Giannis will be playing for Greece. Luka will be playing for his country. It's going to be fun seeing all of these. It's basically going to be every country's best versus best with what should be in the Olympics. And we haven't always sent out our best players the last couple of years. But I was looking at it actually, and Steph Curry has never played for an Olympic team, if you can believe that. He's been on the FIBA rosters. Just not like an official.
Like 2014, right?
Yeah, 2014, but that was a FIBA roster there.
Right.
And same thing with Kawhi Leonard. So I guess, I mean, if we want to do it, we can really quick. Who are the 10? Let's say, I know we sent 15 because 1 through 15. Who are the 10 that you would like to see? Of course, we have the LeBron James. I guess we can go position by position to make it easier. But if you had to pick, what 10 players would you send, assuming everybody is ready to go to the Olympics? At the point guard position, I'm sure we're going Steph, right?
Yeah. I'd say my first 5 would probably consist of Steph, Devin Booker, LeBron, KD, and Anthony
AD.
Davis. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's probably the consensus starting five. Off of the bench, would you go Kyrie or Dame? Or
For
both? I mean, I guess technically we could do both.
I, I guess they both have played in the Olympics, so I guess what I was about to say doesn't really relate. But I think I'd go Kyrie.
I would go Kyrie as well.
I think that. I mean, I don't really. I guess I don't have a great reason for picking Kyrie other than my own fandom. But Kyrie was on that 2016 team, right?
Yes.
2016 team. And I believe that, anytime you put him with LeBron or Kevin Durant, he's played with both. And obviously he can play with stars. I believe that he has no problem coming in and playing for his country.
I mean, he might have some problem with the social media aspect of it.
Well,
we know that's Kyrie.
We'll have to deal with it when we get there.
Right? But yeah, I mean, Kyrie just loves the hoop. But yeah, I mean, if we did that, I mean, you think Jimmy Butler and I mean, we know Draymond's going to be on the team. If LeBron is there, Draymond will be there.
Yes,
that's almost a guarantee, right? That's basically Amir Stewart as a basketball player. Jimmy Butler, you think Jimmy Butler suits up for Team USA? Because my only other thought here is that Bam Adebayo would most likely be the backup big, unless we had a Jaren Jackson. I guess that decision would have to be made. I would assume both will make the roster, but I would assume Bam would be the backup to AD in this hypothetical scenario.
Yeah, if my thing is, if you're going to take Jimmy Butler, are you going to leave Kawhi off the board?
Well, I mean, even if we wanted, like, say in a hypothetical world that Kawhi would come to, I would love to have him come to play for Team USA. Pause. Kawhi Leonard, I just don't even like. He would come to Team USA and then load manage.
True.
Well, I mean, as a PG fan, would you rather see PG or Jimmy Butler?
I was literally just about to throw out the idea of Paul George coming in place of Jimmy. And if, obviously I'm a PG fan and I feel like the world is now finally realizing Paul George is a good basketball player, folks. That is right. Paul George is your favorite player's favorite player. With that being said, Paul George over Jimmy. Paul George, he obviously is a vet of the FIBA, runs. Obviously, he broke his leg during that. I don't mean to bring that up in a harsh way, but he did. But I think that he would like a different taste in his mouth, Paul, than last time he was out there, he broke his leg. So I believe Paul George shows up this year.
Yeah, I think we'll get out of here pretty soon, but I'm just going to end here on this, that the only way the Team USA brings home gold in 2024 is if they bring the guy out of retirement that is the greatest U.S. Olympian in basketball in history, Carmelo Anthony. Bring him out of retirement. He should definitely go out there and drop 30 points for Team USA at least once on the route to gold. But he's definitely a starter. If Melo gets a roster spot, he's definitely a starter, no doubt in my mind, over Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant can ride the bench. That's going to do it here for today's episode. As, again, Bakari came out. We know he's very busy nowadays, but he is very pivotal to this podcast's history, and he's the reason why we are where we are today. But we're on the road to 1,000 subs. We drop 4 videos a week. So if you are here at this point, obviously you enjoyed at least a little bit. So go ahead and support us down below on the road to that next big milestone. But Bakari, any last words before we get out of here today? For officially this time.
Yeah, like I said, I enjoy being on here. Been busy, but it's great. Anytime I have a chance to kind of fill in, on a temporary basis if I can, I most definitely will do it. Who knows what opens up in the future as well. But it's anytime I'm, being back on it, it felt like old times. There really is no rust to knock off because you can just,
it's just like a PlayStation party.
Exactly right. We do this, talking sports. It's like a hobby to us. So, it's great to do it. And it's just been amazing to watch the channel's growth, during all this time. So, I'm still here. I'm still around, folks.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming out. And again, if you want more Bakari, just blow this video up and I guess send it to your favorite sponsor, because then, of course, it would be a daily thing, or at least pretty close to it. But that is, again, going to do it for today's episode. Thank you again for Bakari for showing out. And we'll be back tomorrow with a fantasy football episode. But until then, those are our week 2 predictions. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Stay happy, stay healthy. We're out.